You are LockedOn Braves POSTCAST, part of LockedOn Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the LockedOn Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after Game 3 of the series. The Braves, they took it from the Chicago Cubs. Despite the setback in Game 1, they bounced back with a big win behind Max Fried yesterday, and AJ Smith-Shawver and 5 Braves relievers combined for a shutout. Atlanta's been pitching quite a few of those this year, so they may not be scoring the runs, but the run prevention is looking pretty darn good. The Braves picking up that 3-0 win over the Cubs. We're going to tell you all about it. We'll give you an update on some things happening down on the farm with a certain Braves catcher on his way back to the big leagues. And, of course, we'll get you set up for the 3-game set against the Pittsburgh Pirates that is happening this weekend at PNC Park. Before we get into all of that, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. It is the Game Time app that you want to download. Create that account. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That is the Game Time app. Jake, it was a pretty good start to the road trip for the Braves, despite some early disappointment in the opener. And again, I hate to look at it and say, well, you could have swept that series. But as long as you got out of there winning 2 out of 3 after dropping the opener and doing it in the way the Braves did, especially on the mound, you had to take more positives out of that series than negatives for a club that's still kind of trying to find itself.
Yeah, I mean, you want to look at positives. They scored 3 or more runs in all of these games. I mean, I think we all expected more of the offense, but I think you'll take that, especially with the way the pitching keeps putting up zeros. They've now shut out the Cubs 3 times in the past week plus here. So, yeah, definitely some improvement again after the way things started. And again, it's tough to look back, especially the first game of this series. You catch a pop-up, you sweep this series. But again, to be able to bounce back from that tough loss and win the next 2, again, I think it says a lot about this Braves team. And as bad as they've been, they still manage to just find ways to win.
Yeah, the self-inflicted wound stopped after Game 1. That, of course, helped out. The big offense in Game 2 and the masterpiece from Max Fried were big parts of that. But you kind of wondered what it was going to look like in Thursday's finale, the first day game of this series. AJ Smith-Shawver's, Braves debut for 2024. We saw him last year at a very young age of 20 come and put himself into the rotation for at least a few times through to give the Braves an idea of what they may have. But I think they're feeling like with the development that he should have, because, again, he was just 20 years old when he made his big league debut, this is a guy that could factor heavily into the Braves' rotational plans moving forward. Will that be in 2024? Well, that remains to be seen. There's certainly a vacancy in this rotation, or 2 at times, where he could come in and help, and that's exactly what he was able to do on Thursday. His stuff looked just absolutely just nasty, touching 99 miles an hour with a fastball. We know he's got the big arm. But that changeup, Jake, that was as effective as anything that I've seen out of AJ Smith-Shawver, or as encouraging as anything I've seen, because that gives him a really dynamic 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I talked about it even going back to spring training. It was hard to come away from a spring training where a guy, I believe, had an ERA over 10, and yet I was really encouraged with what I saw in spring training a lot because of that changeup, because that was a new pitch for him. I mean, it was mostly fastball slider, and now you're seeing him feature that changeup even more than the slider, which is still a good pitch for him, but it's one he hasn't really been able to command or even just control a lot this year. But I was really impressed with what I saw from AJ Smith-Shawver. There's clearly stuff there that still needs to be worked on, but going from last time we saw him up here till now, a couple of 3 things in particular that it really was good, or that I saw from him in this one that were really encouraging to me. The fastball command, not even really just control, but the fastball command. And that's something the Braves have really been wanting him and Hurston Waldrop to work on a lot this year. They've taken some of their pitches away at times, just wanting them to focus on the command of that fastball. I mean, especially earlier in the game, he was dotting it on the edges, especially outside to righties. I mean, pretty much whenever he wanted to. You already mentioned the changeup. I mean, that's a pitch that, again, we saw him kind of throwing a lot in spring training, getting a lot of swings and misses. You saw it here too, maybe a little bit of inconsistencies early on, left a couple up. And then the other thing is just the velocity. The big question last year and really coming into this year was, can he maintain that big velocity deep into games? Last year when he came up, we saw him hit 99 in the first inning, but they went to gradually go 97, 96, and then 94 as you got deeper in the outings. But we still saw him be able to reach back and hit 99 in the 4th, 5th inning of this game. So those were 3 things that to me are really encouraging. Again, I mentioned there's still some things to work on. While I did like the fastball command, I'd like to see him throw that up in the zone a little bit more. just because I think the carry on it up in the zone plays a little bit more, and you can get some of those swings and misses on it. Yeah, I mentioned the home runs. We talked about it yesterday, were something they really struggled with both at the big league level and here. And he got, wind maybe blowing in a little bit on this one. There was a couple of balls, one in particular by Christopher Morel that I thought was gone, that hung up there at the warning track. And like I said, deeper in the game, that fastball seemed to get hit a little better. 6 hard hit balls given up. 5 of them came on that fastball. But again, overall, I was really impressed and encouraged with what I saw from AJ Smith-Shawver.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to like about it. I mean, the Braves needed the pitching to step up and continue delivering while they were trying to figure things out at the plate and continue to try to figure all that out. We'll talk a little bit more about AJ Smith-Shawver as we go along. And, of course, the 5 Atlanta relievers that came out of the bullpen to take care of this thing, get it all closed down, and complete the shutout. Atlanta's 8th shutout of the season already. That's a pretty good mark when you're considering this is through just 47 games so far. Atlanta is really, it's almost like we've thrown it back to the 1990s, Jake, and we're building the whole thing on pitching and hoping there's enough offense to make it all happen, make it all work at the right time. But speaking of offense, solo shot from Jarred Kelenic, who's probably going to hit a few more of those. It was funny because I saw on social media right before the game, this was the site of a 482-foot home run by Jarred Kelenic. This one may not have gone quite as far, but I think he likes hitting in Wrigley Field just a little bit.
He seems to, and I thought he had some good at-bats the night before as well. Earlier in this series, he had a good at-bat and drove one out to left field. So, again, you're seeing some signs from Jarred Kelenic here or there. Obviously, the overall numbers don't look great, but it's going to take him a while. I mean, they had to make a lot of changes with him and his mechanics and even his swing decisions. So, got to be a little bit patient with Jarred Kelenic. But, again, here or there, we're seeing signs of him coming around, and the home run ball here lately has certainly been playing for him.
Yeah, Jarred Kelenic with his 3rd home run of the season in this game. So that was, just a little incremental thing that you want to see as he goes through the season. When is that power really going to start showing? And it has here as we've gotten into the middle to latter portion of May, and that is encouraging. The offense, he used a timely production with a 2-run 8th inning. Marcell Ozuna's hit streak may have died a hero, but a sac fly for his 44th RBI of the season. Ozzie Albies also drove in a run in that 8th inning. And the Braves were able to, find the runs that they needed after a night in which they exploded late. They were able, I think, just to add enough insurance so it gave some breathing room for the Braves relievers, AJ Minter and Raisel Iglesias in particular, who were in charge of those last 6 outs.
Yeah, great job by the bullpen. And we talked about it last night with Max Fried's outing, just how important it was. And it allowed Snitker today to go for it. I mean, I understand you can't do that every night, especially when you're in the stretch of games like the Braves are on. You can't afford to, pull the plug on an AJ Smith-Shawver in the 5th inning or whoever it might be to go to a Dylan Lee and then use Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez, AJ Minter, Raisel Iglesias. I mean, those are your top guys. And Snitker went for it in this one, even in a 1-0 game. So, he gets talked about a lot whenever he doesn't go to the A bullpen every time you have a lead in the middle innings. You got to give him credit when he does. And I thought that was very good maneuvering there by Brian Snitker to get it done in this bullpen. Some shaky stuff. Joe Jimenez came in, was a little rocky to start, but then got it together and pitched a clean inning. Pierce Johnson allowed a couple of base runners, but was able to get through it. Minter looked really good after he's had some shaky outings here recently. And then Iglesias. I love watching him as a closer. I know he's not the typical guy that's going to have the big strikeout numbers, especially this year. The strikeout rate is really down, but when you just watch him pitch and all the movement on those pitches and the command that he has, he doesn't walk anybody. I just feel really good about him in the 9th inning.
I think that's one of the things that sometimes, if it is working against Iglesias, is that more times than not, he does have that command and he throws a lot of strikes and he does have a lot of movement, definitely. But he's going to fill up the strike zone. And that's one of the things that I think that hitters maybe this year, or at times when he does get hit hard, they just know it's going to be around the plate so they can kind of adjust accordingly as they need to. But that's easier said than done because Iglesias has been doing this for a while, surpassed his 200th career save a little bit earlier this season as well. So clearly he's able to stay a step ahead when he absolutely needs to. We are going to continue looking into the start by AJ Smith-Shawver. Of course, great work by the bullpen and some of the other things that played into the Braves' series victory against Chicago. And of course, taking the finale was a big part of that. And we'll take a look down on the farm where Sean Murphy was back in action for the Gwinnett Stripers. And I think you're going to like some of the results. We'll talk about that as the Braves postcast continues. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting those tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the low price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Game Time has last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying those last-minute tickets, not just for baseball or sports, concerts, comedy, theater, much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LockedOnMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but just create that account and redeem the code LockedOnMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, Jake, let's take a look at the box score for this game, as it was a Braves victory. 3 runs on 6 hits, no errors for Atlanta, which improves to 29-18 on the year. Cubs shut out on just 4 hits, no errors for them either in this game. The Cubs now 27-24 as they have lost 2 series to the Braves in the course of, about a week or so. So I think they're very happy to not see Atlanta perhaps again for a while, maybe not till October. We'll see how all that plays out. 2 of the hits belonged to Seiya Suzuki in this game. Ian Happ had one, Dansby Swanson had the other, but not a lot of offense to speak of for the Cubs. Just enough offense, as we talked about, for the Braves with the Jarred Kelenic homer and a 2-run 8th inning as well. AJ Smith-Shawver did not pitch deep enough into the game to get the win, but he certainly set things up pretty well on what I assume was a pitch count of no more than 90, 4 1/3 shutout innings for him. The win in relief, it went to Dylan Lee, who came in right after that and threw a scoreless frame overall. Pierce Johnson helping him to get out of what looks like the sixth inning and able to pick up a win. Lee is now 1-1 on the season. Raisel Iglesias, his 12th save. Wisniewski takes a loss in relief. He allowed the Jarred Kelenic homer. That was all it was going to take for the Braves, but you like to see a little bit more. He is now 2-3 on the year. Let's talk in terms of the line score for AJ Smith-Shawver. 3 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts in 4 1/3 innings. I mentioned that pitch count, 87 pitches, 55 of those strikes. We've talked a little bit about what he was throwing, and we also talked a little bit about the results in the minor leagues. And I thought you brought up something interesting. There's always a layer of development that can be happening and things that, that organizations want pitchers to really accentuate or really concentrate on. And that may have led to some of the home run problems he's had in the minors, maybe even a handful of the control problems if he's really trying to perfect one thing at the expense of maybe using all of his pitches to try to just get outs instead of the development factor of it, which the minor leagues, that's what they're there for.
Yeah, it is. And that's why you can't just look at a stat line for minor leaguers, particularly minor league pitchers, and just say, that's the end all be all. Certainly, really good pitchers are typically going to put up really good numbers, but it doesn't always tell you the whole story. But for AJ Smith-Shawver, I mean, the home run ball it's been an issue, at the major league level last year and when he's been at the minor league level this year. So it's something that I think he's definitely has to work on and did a great job of in this one. And that's why I mentioned the fastball earlier, why I think I would like to see him throw it up in the zone a little bit more, because it seems like when it is down in the zone, hitters are able to get under that and get some lift on it. And plus, if you play it with that changeup down and you keep that changeup down, I think that makes it a little bit harder for hitters to get under that baseball and drive it. Maybe that helps with the home runs a little bit. But I mean, he's 21 years old. There's still so much development for him. The Braves have had to rush him because of a need. They've just frankly needed him, and he's one of the best arms that they have in the system. But I'm still really encouraged by the development he's shown this year. We'll see if he sticks in the rotation. Obviously, we don't know. We don't know, who's pitching on Friday at this point. But I think he pitched well enough to at least earn another shot and go around if they want to. Either way, I think he's, as you said at the top, I think he's going to play some sort of role for the Braves this year, whether it's, getting spot starts like this, maybe getting in a bullpen role later in the year. I mean, you see what he's done now with that 2-pitch mix that he has on a fastball and changeup, and he did throw the curveball 18 times as well. And it did some good things too, but particularly just that fastball changeup. If he were to just focus on those as a reliever over 1-2 inning kind of stints, I think he could be a dangerous weapon later in the season as well.
Yeah, and that obviously is not necessarily the long-term goal for him, but just thinking about ways he could impact the club, that's a really good point. I tweeted this last year. I guess I posted it now since the whole website has been rebranded and tweeting's no longer a thing. But putting that aside, you look at the game 1 starter for this series was Charlie Morton. The game 3 starter was AJ Smith-Shawver. In the June 2002 draft, Charlie Morton was a 3rd-round pick by the Braves. Jesse Chavez was also taken in the 42nd round of that draft by the Chicago Cubs. Both of those men are on the current Atlanta pitching staff, just as they were a year ago when AJ Smith-Shawver made his big league debut. Well, AJ Smith-Shawver made his debut on planet Earth 6 months after both of those guys started their professional baseball careers. That is how the circle of life this pitching staff is. But also, it really underscores the point that we're talking about here, that this is a very young pitcher who has very few innings, who's still very much trying to develop things. And I think that he could seriously, with this arm, play an important role for the Braves, either in the starting rotation, in the bullpen, and is a long-term building block that the Braves are happy to have, as you want to have all the quantity of the quality of minor league pitchers that you can get your hands on as well. And the Braves appear to have just a little bit of that. 5 Atlanta relievers combined with Smith-Shawver for this shutout: Dylan Lee, Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez, AJ Minter, Raisel Iglesias. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. Thank Max Fried and his complete game effort for making that thing possible. That's a really important performance because, as we talked about, after Fried's performance, or after Fried's complete game effort, you had to have days like that where the starter did the bulk of the work in order to rest your bullpen when you're not going to have a day off for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's huge. And the offense, too. I mean, the offense allows you to, I think, send Max Fried back out there to finish it off. I mean, had it been a little bit closer game, maybe Brian Snitker goes to Minter, Iglesias, or Jimenez late in that one to finish things off. But, as it was, you had the big lead. Max Fried had a manageable pinch count, allows him to go deep in the game. And, it turns into another win the next day because, who knows what would have happened if, Max Fried only went 6, even 7 innings yesterday, and you had to use some of these guys, and then you didn't want to use them back to back with all these games coming up. So again, we say it all the time whenever a pitcher goes deep like that, but it's not just said flippantly. I mean, that really is important anytime that you can save those bullets, because it can lead to other wins, certainly like it did on Thursday.
They definitely can. And there was plenty of offense to help Max Fried have all of the cushion that he needed to, for Brian Snitker to feel confident that, hey, that 8th inning, that 9th inning, let's give him a shot to, close this whole thing out. And Max Fried was able to do it on 105 pitches. This was not a huge day for the offense, as you might have noted from the 3-0 score. Solo home run, then a couple of late runs for this Braves club. It was enough, despite the fact that you have 11 punch-outs on the day, and the Braves went 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I'm certainly not trying to dig around here and find all the things that are wrong, because I think we've already noted in this series and overall early on here in this season that there are some blemishes for the Atlanta offense. But as long as this club is pitching this way, I think you can feel all right about, days in which the offense, 3-4 runs may simply be enough, because this pitching staff has been able to take care of business. But I'm of the opinion that over the 162, as the pitching staff kind of carries things right now, that offense is going to come into play in a big way, because it's just too talented not to.
Yeah, it is. And it's too talented to be going on for this long. And I know we keep saying the same thing. We talk about it every night, but I'm still a believer. I know you are too. This offense is going to get going at some point. But I was happy in the fact that this one, they got the home run for Kelenic, and you had that one run, and then you had another chance later to kind of tack on. You had second and third, 1 out. Arcia and Michael Harris can't get it done there, striking out to end that frame. But then later in the game, you get 2 on to begin an inning, and you capitalize, and you make the most of that, and you get some add-on runs. Big hit from Ozzie, who's been needing that. He's been struggling a lot lately, especially in the month of May. So that was a big hit for Ozzie there. And then Marcell, I talked about Morel and some others, maybe for the Cubs, just missing some against AJ Smith-Shawver. Marcell Ozuna just missed, getting another 3-run homer in this one. It ended up being a sac fly, but he had 3 hard hit balls in this game. Didn't have a hit, but he did get a walk, and he had that big sac fly, like I said, almost turned into another home run. So I was encouraged by that. They didn't have a lot of opportunities in this one, but I was glad to see that at least later on in this game, when they did have a chance to get those add-in runs to give you a little bit of cushion, they were able to get it done.
Yeah, they definitely were. And that's just kind of what you need right now, is you make the most of the opportunities you have, or at least cash in here or there in order to add it up. And with the way that the pitching staff has been going, and as I mentioned, 8th shutout already for Atlanta. I mean, I knew that this could be a well-rounded staff, but if you told me that, hey, you're going to get 2 starts out of Spencer Strider, and you're going to have to kind of figure out that 5th spot of the rotation again, there's going to be a bit of a revolving door, and that might be an understatement by the time we're done with the 162. We'll find out. But either way, I would have kind of wondered, is this really a pitching staff that's going to be throwing a whole bunch of shutouts? I don't know. You had Chris Sale needed to kind of prove himself, at least to, I think, a segment of Braves fans, that he could be healthy. Everybody wanted to see it. Everybody knows how good he can be when he's going. Max Fried, I think, was able to bounce back very quickly to remind you who he is. Reynaldo Lopez has been a great surprise, and Charlie Morton has been more than serviceable. That's a really good starting 4, and the bullpen, way more times than not, has been able to get you the outs that you need and keep those games close, manageable, or close them out. The pitching has just really become kind of the backbone of this team right now as this offense continues to search for some answers. As you look up and down the lineup, the Braves only had 6 hits, 1 for Acuna, 1 for Albies, which you mentioned. That was an important one, knocked in a run. Ozuna didn't have one, had a sac fly, though. Arcia, Kelenic with a home run, and 2 hits for Chadwick Tromp. He's not going to have too many of those, I don't feel like, in the future, because this other guy, Sean Murphy, might be rejoining the club pretty soon. But a quick shout-out to Chadwick Tromp for the kinds of contributions that he has made to this team. Brian Snitker said that all of these guys that have worked with him, all these pitchers, feel extremely comfortable with him behind the plate. It is a real bonus to have not just Travis d'Arnaud, not just Sean Murphy, but somebody else you can call upon in case one of those aforementioned catchers goes down, and the pitching staff still feels incredibly comfortable, like they have the relationship they need to do everything they need to do on the mound on a given day because they have the trust on who's behind the plate.
Yeah, Sal Fasano gets a big props for that as well. I think he does a great job with the catchers there for the Braves. And Alex Anthopoulos gets, a good kudos as well because he brings in this great depth to have for guys like this. I mean, Zach Short, that pickup, I didn't think much of it when it happened, but he's made some good contributions in Riley's absence so far. So, you go back to last year. I mean, the Kevin Pillar signing, nobody thought much of that. He came in, had some big moments. So there just always seems to be those players for the Braves. They come in, and when they get their chance, they're ready to go. And Chadwick Tromp, even more so just because of what he has to do behind the plate, learning these pitchers, maybe he hasn't caught a lot. Certainly probably helps. I'm sure he's caught AJ Smith-Shawver a good bit, with those two being at AAA. But he's done a fantastic job. You hear nothing but good things about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does take that depth, and it takes more than the 26 men to get through that 162-game season. We have learned that lesson year over year over year. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming 3-game set against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll give you an update on Austin Riley. Also, Sean Murphy, who continued his rehab assignment with AAA Gwinnett on Thursday. All of that comes your way as the Braves postcast continues. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Baseball season in full swing. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks entries. Strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of all those stats, more or less, and then add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB in the Prize Picks app. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up for the Braves. Also, a couple of other news and notes items before we get out of here. Braves rolling into Pittsburgh for the weekend. PNC Park's the place. We will not see Paul Skeens, who pitched on Thursday. The Braves also won't see Jared Jones. That's a relief for this offense, which is already, faced a lot of good pitching this year, but clearly still trying to kind of find its identity here in 2024. One way to get back to who and what they were would be to get Austin Riley back in the lineup. He continued to do some work on Thursday, Jake. So we're definitely past the 10 days that would have been an IL stint for him. Back this weekend, I think, is the question everybody's asking themselves, and it sounds like definitely maybe.
Yeah, it's the saga that just won't end for Austin Riley. I know he's frustrated by it. I know the Braves are frustrated by it, and it's one of those things you just never know, and it's something that you don't want to re-aggravate. Similar to the Sean Murphy situation. Obviously, that was a much worse injury, but it's just one of those things when you're dealing with that area that you just don't want it to keep popping back up on you. So you want to be very careful and make sure that when it's gone for good. So I understand just being overly cautious here. We've talked about the fact that having that extra bench spot just really doesn't mean much in today's game with the designated hitter. So hasn't really hurt the Braves too much just having him there on the bench. But certainly for the Braves on the field, you want to get him back out there as soon as you can. And like you said, hopefully that'll be this weekend.
Yeah, they would definitely like to see Austin Riley back at the hot corner. And talking to him last week at Truist Park, he said, look, I do not want to revisit this. So if the training staff says this is what we need to do, this is what I'll do. I'm going to try to stay active, do all the fielding stuff. Clearly, as the road trip has gotten underway, he's been able to start swinging the bat. And Brian Snitker said, until he can do that, we can't really set any kind of timetable for him. So it does seem like some of the pieces are starting to fall into place. However, you just got to get through it, feel healthy, and get back in there, because if they have to, lose him for a significant amount of time, I don't know that there's going to be a quick waiver claim / pickup acquisition that's going to be able to fill in for the very big shoes of Austin Riley at the third base position. Speaking of guys who've been filling in for quite some time, Sean Murphy strained that oblique back on opening day, started his rehab assignment a couple of days ago, caught 7 innings, hit a 449-foot home run to center in his first at bat. Well, he enjoyed that so much that after a day off yesterday, he got back in the lineup as a DH for Gwinnett and clocked yet another home run. Looks like Sean Murphy is not feeling the ill effects of being able to swing the bat and put the ball out of the ballpark. Jake, that's nothing but a good sign for the Braves catcher, who they hope to welcome back, I would imagine, when they return home to Truist Park after this weekend series.
Yeah, I would think so as well. And it's very encouraging. I just talked about the fact that, with that injury, that oblique area, one thing you worry about coming back is, are you going to be able to swing as aggressively? And we know Sean Murphy has a very aggressive, violent swing. He hits the ball very hard. So it's great to see that hasn't really slowed him up so far in this rehab. You mentioned the home run, 107 miles per hour off the bat, but he also had 2 other hard hit balls in this game, a 96 mile per hour fly out that went 270 feet and a 100.5 mile per hour fly out that went 376 feet. So he just missed getting 2 home runs on the night as well. So great stuff there from Sean Murphy. Again, we mentioned the power outage for the Braves. Will be great to get another big bat in that lineup that's consistently putting up huge exit velocity numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he set a career high in home runs last year, despite playing in far fewer games than he did in that 2022 campaign, his last one with the Oakland Athletics. Now, as far as what's going to be going on for the Braves and the Pirates when they open up this 3-game weekend series, Pirates, I would qualify as kind of a, not surprise, but definitely a competitive club. They seem to at least be moving in the right direction. They've got some very exciting young players on the mound. They got O'Neal Cruz, who hits the ball as hard or harder than just about anybody this side of Giancarlo Stanton, which is impressive in and of itself. What is he going to become for this club? I think they're trying to find a little bit more out about that this season. It's a competitive team. And Jake, as you know, and as we've seen with the way that things have been going for the Braves, you can't overlook anybody, because when your offense is not running at maximum efficiency, every run counts. And this will be, I think, an interesting weekend series and a test for the Braves in one of the nicest parks in all of baseball, PNC Park. I don't know that there's a better backdrop. If you're just, putting something together for a video game, this would be the kind of park that you'd create. It's just a shame that the fans in Pittsburgh haven't been able to watch a consistent winner for much of the life of that ballpark.
Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list. One stadium that I haven't made it to yet, but certainly want to get there, because that is just a beautiful looking stadium with that nice backdrop. But, it's baseball. Things happen. I feel like this is one of those series that for the Braves, it needs to be a series win. You're missing Jared Jones, you're missing Paul Skeens, so you're missing their 2 best pitchers. You are getting Mitch Keller in the middle game of this series, and we don't know who's pitching on Friday for the Braves, but hopefully this is an opportunity for the offense to get going. Meanwhile, the Pirates offense is bottom 5 in the league as well, which is kind of where the Braves have been for the past month. So, it's an offense that's really been struggling up to score runs, just like the Braves have been. But I trust the Braves pitching staff a little bit more. But, got to get it done on the field. Like you said, you can't take anybody for granted, especially with the way the Braves offense has been struggling for the past month now. But just on paper, looking at the matchups, it feels like this should be a good chance for the Braves to pick up another series win.
Yeah, no, hopefully so. And it would seem that without having to see like the young phenoms of the Pirates, that it could, be a bit more favorable for the Braves. Bailey Falter, the left-hander, is going to go for Pittsburgh in Friday's opener. He's 2-2 on the year, a 3.53 ERA. The Braves declined to name a starting pitcher after the game on Thursday, which leads me to believe they're going to make a roster move to do that. I mean, Darius Vines would seem to be available. Alan Winans, though, is the one who's not listed on the Gwinnett probable starters. When I looked at the game notes today, obviously Bryce Elder was optioned out, so he would not be coming back for this one. So it'll be interesting to see which direction the Braves go with this on Friday. Reynaldo Lopez gets Mitch Keller on Saturday afternoon. And then in the finale, it's Chris Sale against Martin Perez, battle of left-handers. That's a 1:35 first pitch, a Sunday matinee. Then the Braves will come home and face the Washington Nationals for the first of a 3-game series at Truist Park. But you got to get through the Pirates first, and we got to figure out who's pitching the first game. But the Braves, regardless, I think you hit the nail on the head. It would be great to bring home a couple of series wins from this road trip and really get back on track at home as well, because that Padres series really kind of took the wind out of the sails of what was, prior to that, the best home record in baseball.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Obviously, Braves have been so good at home in the past, and just a good atmosphere there. So school's out now, so hopefully the crowds are going to be even better. Not that they haven't been packed already, but I'd love to see the Braves come back home after a series win, and like I said, just continue that good success. We'll see what happens on Friday, who starts that game. Like you said, Darius Vines is there. I know he got warmed up the other day. Could be Alan Winans. Could be Jesse Chavez. I would never rule him out from coming in with the way that he pitches for the Braves.
That is a very good point. There's always a Jesse Chavez angle to play if you're the Atlanta Braves. But Friday's game one of this 3-game set is a 6:40 first pitch at PNC Park as the Pirates welcome the Atlanta Braves to town for that 3-game set. Bailey Falter, the lefty, will be on the mound for Pittsburgh. We'll find out who the Braves send out there at some point before first pitch. I have a very, very good feeling. That's going to bring us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta right here on YouTube. Leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, the Braves take 2 out of 3 from the Chicago Cubs. Next stop is Pittsburgh. We will catch you later on. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. Until then, so long, everybody.